Good morning and welcome to this other edition of the papers on Canal de English. My name is Lesley Fombuh and I'm glad to be a host this morning on this edition. We unfold the papers this morning with Le Cameroon, the English version, that is the Catholic Weekly in Cameroon. The paper captions: Sacramentals, neither magic potions nor merchandise. Details on the story says a sacramental is a secret sign that the church is instituted to prepare Christians to receive the fruit of the sacraments and to sanctify different circumstances of our lives. The paper says, however, due to growing Pentecostal influences, the rush for sacraments today is staggering, and they are unfortunately steadily replacing the sacraments. This misconception now accounts for the noticeable abusive use of sacramentals amongst the laity and sometimes even amongst priests and religious, as they are seen as magic potions and merchandise in the superstitious marketplace. How do you see and use sacramentals? You can get the answers to that question on page 6 and 7 of Le Cameroon, the English version this morning. That is a Catholic Weekly. We stay with the paper which captions on another very interesting story that is at the Vatican, where Pope's morning mass, Lord, keep me from pretending to be a Christian. The details on the story says the importance of safeguarding Christian identity, not living double lives. That was the theme at the heart of Pope Francis' recent homily at the Santa Marta Mass. The Pope Francis based his words on the daily readings, which are focused on the need for coherence between our spiritual and our temporal lives. Now, Pope Francis, we stay with the Pope Francis declarations on Le Cameroon this morning. Pope Francis, don't read your horoscope, look at Jesus Christ. The details on the story says, when you feel the urge to check your horoscope, instead turn your gaze to Jesus, recommends Pope Francis, who assures that a glance towards our Lord will serve us better than fortune tellers. The story says the Pope said this before praying the midday Angelus with those gathered at St. Peter's Square on the second to the last Sunday of the liturgical year. The readings from the liturgies, according to the paper of this season, focuses on the end of times, as that day's selection from the 13th chapter of Mark. We stay with Le Cameroon, the English version this morning, which captions on another interesting story. Pope's message on Paris attacks. That's another interesting story on Le Cameroon this morning. The paper says Cardinal of State Pierrot Parolin sent his telegram on behalf of the Holy Father to Cardinal André Ventura, Archbishop of Paris, following the terrorist attacks in the French capital, which took place during the night of November 13. The details on the story says, having learned of the horrible terrorist attacks in Paris and at the Stade de France, causing the death of so many people and injuring many others, the Holy Father Francis joins in prayer with the suffering of the families affected by this tragedy and the mourning of the French people. He asks that God be the merciful Father, welcome the victims in the place, in peace of his light, and offer consolation and hope to the injured and their families. We stay with the Catholic Weekly this morning, which captions on this other story: Dei Verbum celebrates a continental golden jubilee. The story says from November 9 to the 14, 2015, the Catholic Church in Rwanda was host to the continental celebration of the Jubilee of the promulgation of the dogmatic constitution Dei Verbum. The details on the story says organized by the Biblical Center for Africa and Madagascar, BICAM. It was attended by delegates from different countries in Africa and beyond, and had as theme Dei Verbum, milestone in the church, exegetical, theological, spiritual, pastoral, and ecumenical sphere in the life of the church in Africa. The paper says solemnly promulgated by His Holiness Pope Paul VI on November 8, 1965. Holy Mother Church presents to her faithful the authentic truths concerning divine revelation in Dei Verbum. We still stay with this other story that says that Monsignor Damazinga Atangana has been appointed the Bishop of Kribi. That is on the English version of Le Fort Cameroon this morning. On November 7, 2015, according to the paper, Pope Francis appointed Monsignor Damazinga as the Bishop of Kribi Diocese. The story says the new bishop has replaced the first bishop of Kribi, Monsignor Joseph Befe Ateba of blessed memory. Now, still on the Le Fort Cameroon this morning, the paper says Sports Minister overturns Fecafoot election cancellation. The details on the story says the Cameroon National Olympic Chamber of the Arbitration of Sports and Reconciliation has declared as null and void September 29 to 2015 elections that saw the arrival of Tombi Aroko as president of the Cameroon Football Federation. You can read more on page 5 of Le Fort Cameroon to quench your thirst. Another story, The Scoop. The Scoop is another Anglophone newspaper in Cameroon, a local tabloid, which captions on another interesting story. The paper says that the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement reorganization tension in Boya as mayor's list rejected Turks storm polling station and disrupt the voting exercise. And the details on the story is on page 6 of that paper. You can read more on The Scoop to quench your thirst this morning on that very, very interesting story. Another story on The Scoop this morning is that of controversy over TB Joshua's Paris attacks prophecy. The story says prominent Nigerian pastor TB Joshua, who runs the Synagogue Church of All Nations, that is the SCOAN, claims to have foretold last Friday's Honduras terrorist attack on the French capital Paris 2 years ago, that is on in November 2013. Friday's attacks claimed by Islamic State militant hit concert hall, major stadium, that is Stade de France, restaurants and bars in the French capital, killing 132 people and leaving more than 352 wounded. The story says, in typical TB Joshua style, he posted a message on his official Facebook page on a day after the attack. The message was accompanied by a video in which he allegedly claims to have prophesied about the attacks in France. We'll stay with that same paper which says Serac donates to school youths. The story says the First Lady Chantal Biya and her association, Friends of Cameroon, Serac, have donated a variety of equipment to the multidisciplinary training center for youths in Cameroon. And Frundi blames Kumbu water crisis on politics. Yeah, that is still on The Scoop this morning. The details on the story says John Frundi, national chairman of the Social Democratic Front Party, has said that if the fund of Nso versus Mayor Njong Imbroglio is escalating this far, it is because of Fon Shem Dinglo, the first of Nso, who was admired for his political neutrality, has unprecedentedly embraced politics tooth and nail. We now move over to another paper, that's Oroplius, which captions on the saga at the Cameroon football governing body, Fecafoot, this morning. Details on the story says Bel Antoine, Loga and Abdurrahman reply Bidung Part. The details on the story is a focus on the recent decision cancelling the decision taken by the Chamber of Conciliation and Arbitration of the National Olympic and Sports Committee. Read more on page 7 of Oroplius to quench your thirst. Oroplius this morning captions on another interesting story. The paper captions on the reasons why a people was recently murdered by his own father. The details on the story is a focus on the revelations made by the mother of the people. Another paper, La Nouvelle Expression, captions on another interesting story. The paper says Bel Antoine Abdurrahman and Loga dribble Bidung Part. Details on the story says the coalition headed by the president of Etoile Filand of Garwa recently reacted to the decision of MINSEP, which maintains Tombi Aroko as president of Fecafoot. You can read more on page 3 of that is on the paper this morning. On page 3, La Nouvelle Expression captions on another captivating story saying the former mayor of the Douala 4 municipality, that is Mr. Ndangle Kumase John, is in deep shit. The story is a focus on the charges which, according to the papers, is a proof that the former mayor was involved in an embezzlement scandal. Well, thanks for following the very first part of the papers this morning. We are very grateful to know that you're out there watching. We now receive our guests. Like we always, it's a tradition on the program because in this, during the second segment, we focus on the analyzing the contents of the papers every morning. Good morning once more, Elie Smith.
Good morning to you.
And we are glad to have you on board again. Thank God it's Friday.
Thank God it's Friday, and it's always a pleasure to be here.
So what is your plan for the weekend?
Well, I don't have any extraordinary thing to do. It's just to stay at home with my family.
That's good. And let's look at what caught your attention on the papers today.
Well, what caught my attention in the papers, first of all, is the problem of the saga or the crisis that is bedeviling the reorganization within the CPDM party, and then the water crisis in Kumbo, which is, I think Kumbo should be the second largest town in the Northwest province. And where John Frundi says if the problem of the water crisis continues or persists, is simply because of political reasons. A fund who was known formally of his neutrality and respected for that has decided to act like other funds in that part of the country and elsewhere.
Let's look at what is happening at the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement Party in Buea, precisely, where the mayor's list was rejected, and we got news that there was a serious fight that pursued, and most people went back with broken jaws.
Sure,
there's war in the CPDM party.
There is war because I think this reorganization is going to act as a kind of the changing face of the CPDM, and I think they are now trying to retool themselves for eventual battles such as the legislative and presidential elections that may come up very soon.
Yes.
That is the reason why I seem to understand or see that there is this fight and people don't seem to want to respect the rule of law, because some of them wants to be the players and arbiters at the same time. Hence, this problem of conflict, not only in Buea, we've registered it all over the Republic. We had it in the Northwest province. We recently also heard about in the Adamawa, there is a problem bedeviling them as far as the reorganization.
Is this party competent enough to rule Cameroon? Because what is actually happening in the party is a reflection of the situation now in Cameroon. You find people fighting and going back with broken jaws, big weeks in the country.
Sure, but well, now when you say is this party competent enough to govern Cameroon, the answer is an emphatic no. Because they are at the head of this country because of the will of the French. You know, they came first as a CNU, and now it has been morphed into the CPDM when Biya came to power. But the problem is that they are in power. I think there are many people within the party who are not used to democratic norms. Internal democracy has not prospered in the party. That's the reason why they are finding it difficult today, because it seems as if there are some guys, some gentlemen and women who come from Yaoundé who want to impose their own militants or delegates, which the people on the ground don't want. For example, the case of Buea. Yes. How on earth do they want to remove the list of the mayor of Buea to be replaced by what I understood is a kind of consensus?
Are we sure the mayor's list too is not has not been manipulated?
Well, if the mayor's list has been manipulated, that's something I don't know, but already the mayor has a kind of credibility already. He's the mayor of Buea, which means that he has the grassroots support.
Yes.
Why do they want to disqualify his own list? It means that there is something happening, and well, people have to defend themselves, but it's unfortunate that they are fighting and having broken jaws and things like that.
It's unfortunate, like you said. Let's look at another story today, the Feka saga. Bell Antoine and co answered a reply to the Minister of Sports and Physical Education, who cancelled the decision that saw the coming to power of Tombi Aroko. You know, the Conciliation and Arbitration Committee of the National Olympic and Sports Committee actually cancelled that elections that saw Tombi. But yes, we got news that the Minister of Sports also went against that decision, and Bell Antoine reacted yesterday.
Yes, you know, there's a problem with sports in this country. I think it's at the image of the country. Things don't seem to work anymore. There's a lot of disorganization. Yes. Yesterday, for example, my point of view at first was that the minister has no right to intervene in a legal matter because they should allow the judiciary to have independence. Then along the line, I understood, am I wrong or right? But I'm wrong. The only problem I have personally is that I've not bothered myself to go and find out, to look at the areas of competence of the Court of Arbitration.
Yes.
Were they in their own right? I think if Bel Joseph Antoine is reacting, he's intelligent enough to react. I don't think he's just reacting simply because...
Don't you feel like they're trying to cause some confusion in the Cameroon football governing body because they want to be president? It's for personal reasons, we can put it that way.
Well, we cannot really say for personal reasons. I think along the line, Bel Joseph Antoine and others seems to think they have been cheated out of the whole show.
That's why they want to cause confusion.
And, well, if it is in that case, then it seems like that's what they want to go. I think the only thing is that they want justice to prevail. That's the only important thing. And this country should learn how to respect the rule of law. The problem is that at the Cameroon FA, they have not always respected the rule of law, not just there, but elsewhere in this country. It has been a lawless way of doing things. And I think for once, law should have an upper hand over individual or collective interests.
Yes, we have the papers also focus on a very interesting story today that Africans don't read, especially Cameroonians.
Oh yeah,
that's 10 reasons why we must read. That is on Le Fort Cameroon this morning.
And Le Fort, I would like to thank the editors of Le Fort.
That is Irenius Chongwanchia.
Exactly, who did this something to bring out this problem. Yes, Africans and Cameroonians don't like to read, and which is wrong. And I heard there was a time, I think this is the Nigerian president who made a statement, former president Obasanjo said, if you want to hide an information from an African, put it in a book.
Yes.
It is unfair that we don't want to read, we don't have this culture of reading, and that's the reason why we Africans, we Cameroonians in particular, are subject to manipulation of a few who are reading, who use the advantage that they are reading to manipulate over those who don't read. For example, you have a culture in this country of people with doctorate degrees and things like that who have taken hostage every nook and crannies of the media in this country, who think that what they say, it becomes law. Whereas sometimes they are lying. Intellectually, they are not honest. Had it been we had this culture of reading, we would have understood that when somebody who professes to be a professor, a doctor, says something, we might challenge him, saying him, yo, you quoted this book, but in reality, this is what the author said. Because reading is very important.
Because you are well read.
Because you are well read. I think they did a very good thing. Cameroonians should learn how to read, especially young Cameroonians should have this culture of reading. Before we leave the studio, sir, there is this other interesting story. They say that there's controversy surrounding TB Joshua's prophecy on the Paris attacks. Do you believe in the prophet TB Joshua? I don't believe in him. I think it's a charlatan. Why do you say that? Because these people, prophets, whatever, I respect men of God, honestly speaking. Yes. But TP Joshua should not have this type of sensational attitude that whenever there is something, he claims to have prophesied. Anyway, let him prophesy what is going to happen to Cameroon in 2018. Yes. Then I'll believe I'll believe in him. Yes. So you're totally against him prophesying? Yes, he does. I have discovered that he has become... You believe that it's a showbiz game? He has become showy. Yes. A man of God, it shouldn't be showy. He should try to abide by the rule of the Bible and try to be humble and try to serve people. What I try to see what TP Joshua is trying to do is that he shows off. He brags a lot. You don't need to brag to show that you're a man of God. Yes. You will know that you're a man of God through your own deeds. Thanks, Elie Smith, for respecting this rendezvous. Thank you a lot. And we want to thank you, televiewers out there, for following this other edition of the program, The Papers on Canal de English. Let's take another rendezvous for Monday. Thanks for your kind attention, and goodbye.